Kaseng Congress ha Meghalaya ha ka arpu santrik jeliu. Kala Ther ting ha kabayadei bat ka jinglait tu ki jingkylli jo ka NEET Exam. Kabala long ha ka lai trik ujemang. Bat ya kabala ha ban penong biang da kawepan ha ka arpu wei trik ujeliu arza apun rio. Chairman ka Meghalaya Pradesh Congress Committee MPCC Social Media Cell uba langkupar war haba keren Syllad pthai kubor ulo ong baki samla puli kila syak tak jor namar ka nika jing bar ka jing pulam ha ka rukom penyat ha ka liang ka Pule Puthi hapo kari ulo ong ru ba ka Pule Puthi hapo kari kala hiar arsun bat ka jingduna jo ki nohikai ka dika wene ki daw bokong san ka balalam syak ka jing hiar arsun kidan hadu sawa jarsis pa nri pusangot ki samla puli ha Meghalaya ki bala hab banyale biang ya ka exam ha ki khat saw tuli ki center ka jala ka shania tali ha ka samagra shiksha ka balong ha ka jingkhen ka ba khandai phaula shipho bat ka dei na pedeng ki jaka ki baduna tam ka jingyo ki school computer hapo kari India ulong ula kan tho baka jing pensangye bat penong thma ya ka NEET UG arja apn rio ha ka arpuwe trik jeliu ha ki san hajar sospa sapho tli ki center na ka benta palat arpu ar lakngot ki samla puli ka pen paw ya ka jing pulam ka bakham jeliu shu shu ha ka rukom penyat ka NEET ka raya ka lawe jong ki samla Henry haba ka linti jongka ka syak penthon ka jing shania ha ka rukom penyat barok ka wei ka don ha ka jing khiwin ong uba war haba Ther ting ya ka National Testing Agency jongkari da ka ba ong baka jing shania kala beteng ban pulam ka Congress kala dawaru ba Myntri ka tanat Pule Puthi jongkari udharmendra pradhan udai ban hiar shuki no mardor ban shim ya ka jingkit khli bat ka dawaru ban thong daga kinhun toket balai luit ban toket banya halor ka daga jinglai tu ki jingkylli ka balapan khi win ya ka ri barok ka wei
The NEET leak, paper leak, is just a symptom. I think most of you are aware of what happened in the last 1 month with regards to the leakage of the NEET paper. This was in May, and 5 days after the exam was conducted, it had to be cancelled when a leak was detected. There was a guidebook that was in circulation, and when the investigators checked the data and the information of the guidebook, they realized that almost 60 to 70% of the questions that were being circulated actually were from the main paper. That's the reason. That's the main reason why the NEET exam was cancelled eventually, and it was rescheduled in June. And the numbers are quite staggering because if you look at the numbers, more than 22 lakh aspirants had to attend this exam, and it was cancelled in May, as I mentioned earlier, because a guest paper circulating in coaching hubs was found to overlap heavily with the real paper. It was reconducted on 21st June 2026 at 5,440 centers across 551 cities and 14 centers abroad, mobilizing hundreds and thousands of personnel. So for us, this repeated leakage of question papers is a great cause of concern. I'm saying this Rahul Gandhi opened his speech in Kota. He said, this is not about the Congress, and he was not going to talk about the Congress or the BJP. This is us, parents, concerned citizens. For example, I'm a third generation teacher, and my colleague over here, Mr. Bandra, is a teacher by profession. He runs a school. Manuel has families, right, who are in the teaching profession. Like I said, I'm a third generation teacher. My family, has set up 2 schools. We've set up 1 college, and on top of that, almost all my cousins, all my aunts are in the teaching profession. So for us, it's really a cause of concern because the NEET, it's just a symptom. The disease, the ailment is somewhere else, and for us, we felt that it's very, very important that that we highlight where the ailments are. And for us to understand where the issues are, we have to look at the numbers. For example, I've shared the numbers with you. If you look at the combined public spending on education from 2013 to 14, it's 3.8% of GDP. The combined public spending on education center plus states in 2021 has increased, no doubt, to 4.64% of the GDP. But I want to draw your attention to the latest PRS estimate on the combined spending, that is 2022-2023, which indicated that there has been a drop in the percentage of GDP of the budgetary allocation. Now, if you look at the NEP 2022 target, the government had made it very clear that the target is 6% budgetary spending of the GDP. But if you look at the numbers, the Ministry of Education expenditure growth 2015, 16 to 2025, 26, there's been only a 5% annualized growth. I think later on you can, Manuel probably will explain the numbers, the significance of these numbers and the implications of these numbers in detail. And I would like to share this another very, very important data with you. This is from the Ministry of Education. This is the budget estimates for the year 2024-25. The number is huge. It's 1,20,628 crore. But here is the devil is in the details actually. If you compare this data with the data that was released by the Ministry of Education in the previous financial year, we notice that there has been a 7% lower allocation. So the budgetary allocation for the year 2024 to 25 has seen a reduction of around 7%. Now 7% out of 1,20,000 crore, 628 crore is a huge amount. Now it doesn't stop there. The data further indicates that that the higher education allocation for 24-25, that is the budget estimates, has further reduced from by 17% lower than the 2023-2024 revised estimates. Now, again, as a teacher, this is a particular concern for me because I teach in the university. When I saw this number, I was quite shocked, because the UGC allocation for 2024-25 budget estimates was reduced by 61%. Now, I'll repeat that. The UGC allocation for 2024-25 was reduced by 61%. No wonder, we have problems, and especially in the higher education space. I think most of the members of the press over here, you've covered the issues that have been happening in the EU in the last 3 to 4 years. I think one of the main reasons, apart from uh, the the issues that have been highlighted, is this fact that that there's been a significant reduction on the higher education and the UGC allocation, which again I said, I quoted the number, a reduction of 61%. Now again, if you look at the education ministry again, 24-25 versus 25-26, the budget estimate versus the revised estimate, there's been a 5% lower than budgeted. Now, if you look at the school education underspending 24-25 revised versus budget estimate, there's a 7% lower than budgeted. Higher education underspending 2024-25 revised estimate versus budget estimate, we see a 2% lower than budgeted. Now we come to another very, very important scheme, which is the midday meal scheme. Of course, it has been renamed by the BJP government to PM Poshan. Again, when I saw this, I was quite shocked, because between 24 and 25, between the revised estimates and the budget estimates, we see a 20% lower than budgeted. Now you're talking about 20%. Now the PM Poshan, as many of you are aware, is actually a scheme that has been designed for the underprivileged children. This is to incentivize them to come to school, to least for those students who come from underprivileged backgrounds. The idea that that you're going to get a meal in the school is a very, very important incentive. So a 20% reduction in the PM portion speaks a lot about the priority of this government, the central government. Now, want to quote another very, very important number, very, very important data. This is the PM Shri program. Between the revised estimate and the budget estimate, we noticed that there's a 26% lower than budgeted. Now the PM Shri program is another flagship program of the central government, which was designed, which was rolled out to improve the learning outcomes, to improve the infrastructure and the teacher training education of the I mean in the country. But we noticed that that in 24 and between 24-25 there was a 26% lower than budgeted between the revised estimate and the budget estimate. Now we come to another program which is called the STARS program. We noticed that that there's been a 32% lower than budgeted between the revised estimate and the budgeted estimate. Another flagship program which is meant to again incentivize, which is meant to help students coming from underprivileged background is the student aid, the SAF. Again, we noticed that there's been a 33% lower than budgeted between the revised estimates and the budget estimates. The PM Usha program, again, another staggering number because we see a 51% lower than budgeted between the revised estimate and the budget estimates.
So I'm sure, like once you get to go through these numbers in detail, probably you'll understand the significance of what's happening in the country today.
The demand for resignation of the union minister, which is repeated, and because of the various nationwide exam failures, I think is a legitimate demand. And we believe so that somebody, we always say that somebody has to bell the cat. No, the buck has to stop somebody. And the buck at this time has to stop with the education minister, the union minister. I think it's very important that we stick to that. And the government also takes it, shows at least that it takes it a lot more seriously than what it has been doing. We also say that, that whatever leakage that has happened in the past, I think there should be a time-bound investigation towards the various leakages that has happened because the public needs to know, the students needs to know, and especially people who are aspiring. Because then you'll build the confidence level amongst the students as far as students is concerned. Because I think it's been eroding, and it's eroded quite heavily right now. So most of the students have given up on the system itself. Yeah. Uh, Full disclosure of the Radhakrishnan committee recommendations were actually implemented. So with that we have to know restructuring and replacement of the NTA with a transparent, accountable, properly staffed body. Right? As I think Bala has mentioned earlier, that it's more or less everything seems to be heading down to commercialization.
It is.
And the BJP is more interested in actually making money from each and every system that might exist. And I think that is something that needs to be looked at more seriously. And the NTA, definitely a restructuring of the NTA is a legitimate demand from our side. As far as teachers are concerned, I think the numbers have already been spelled earlier. It's quite a huge number, nearly 10 lakhs now. We believe that many vacancies, and I think the ugly face is even being seen in Shillong, right? So Nehu itself has a huge amount of teaching staff which is not filled, and there's no intention to refill them. I think that will definitely impact the education system, which is very basic, but then it's very important that that has to be taken into account. Uh, uh, the students who have been betrayed, right? Most of the students, I think it's becoming a health issue. Yeah. So the mental health of many of these students who has gone through such a traumatic experience, I think it's the government's responsibility to take care of them. It's the government's responsibility to ensure that no harm is done to them because it's of no fault of theirs. And I think that's also very important. Parliamentary debate on the future of national education and the national testing itself. I think so. The government should open up and should not just keep on shunning people from discussing this in Parliament. And I think the floor of the Parliament is an important democratic tool in which everybody can voice out their opinions and so on and so forth, and the truth will come out. Yeah, and that's also one of the important things. And we believe that these are the demands which is legitimate from our side, and I believe so that even from the central's point of view, that the Congress is agreeing to this, and we would also like to share this.